But on the other hand, you could not say the same thing about, let's say, the Rig Veda or the Chandogya Upanishad. So to that extent, I genuinely believe that probably there was some real character by that name.
What often bothers me is a question of scale.
Yeah.
Because we are now talking of a world of so many, 6 billion people?
That's right.
If we go back hundreds of years, thousands of years, we've come into a very, very small population in the world.
Yeah.
So a place like Mathura or Dwarka would be very tiny places.
Of course.
With not too many people.
Of course.
So when the Mahabharata takes place, the army may not be very large either.
Absolutely.
But in our imagination, because of all the myth making and
Yes.
all that's been written,
Yes.
we see this as a vast and huge thing.
Of course.
But actually the scale would have been much smaller.
The scale could have been much smaller.
The same thing goes with any religion. If you talk of Jesus Christ or
Yes.
whatever. So
Honestly speaking, I think the mistake that we make is we try and look at history as a linear graph. When we go back in time, we think that it's a straight line, and if we were to map progress against time, we think of it as an upward inching graph. That with every century that has gone by, we have progressed as human beings, as a civilization. But I wonder as to whether that is true. To my mind, that linearity is a fallacy. I would rather look at human evolution as a stock market graph, where there were lots of peaks, lots of troughs, probably lots of jagged ends. And so you had climatic conditions, you had things like, for example, the melting of the glaciers during the melting of the last ice age. You've had earthquakes, you've had probably wars, famine. We know that an entire civilization was destroyed in Egypt because of the fact that it became too dry. So all of that tells me that we've had lots and lots of ups and downs. And those ups and downs, so in other words, when you simply look at a continuum of the last, let's say 4,000 years, you'll say, yes, this is linear. But then you're looking at a very small portion. The moment you start going back further and further, 10,000 years, 20,000 years, you're going to see more and more of those dips and peaks. And so that's the way I would like to sort of look at history. That it's very possible, to my mind at least, as a person who has a wild imagination, it seems very possible that we had a much more advanced civilization 5,000 or 6,000 years ago.
To end with, just you made an observation about how the more you know, the more we find out about the world, the less we will believe in God.
Yes.
Because, like you mentioned the
Yes.
sun god.
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
people didn't know there was a
Yeah.
ball of fire, people thought the sun was a god. Now we know it's not. It's
That's
a
right.
star, a
That's
burning
right.
star. And the more we know about the universe, the less we will believe in God.
Of course.
That would be a tragedy, wouldn't it?
I have mentioned this in my book, which is the passage which I read out. But I genuinely sort of wonder that if you look at ancient man, who probably just saw the sun rise and saw the sunset, and he thought it was basically the sun god coming out in his chariot, driving across the skies and going off to sleep, and so there was a divinity attached to him. And then the moment you said, well, no, the sun is just a ball of fire, and we've got planets which are revolving around that, then suddenly the sun lost its divine status. And to my mind, honestly speaking, that seems to be the process which is happening with everything. If you take, for example, the recent discoveries of the Higgs boson, it's again sort of demystifying the God particle to a certain extent and telling us that, well, we are all bundles of energy. And the bundle of energy can either become something like matter, or it can behave like any way, depending upon what is that intelligence attached to it. So in other words, to a certain extent, now we are demystifying at the subatomic level. What I do hope is that there is something which will always remain unanswered. That there will always be something at that margin which will not be answered. For example, I've always had this fascination with the idea that, well, if the Big Bang tells me that there was a singularity and that singularity eventually exploded into the universe, yes, Physics can tell me that there was a singularity, but it can't tell me what was there before the singularity. How did the singularity come? It's like, and that leads you then to the chicken and egg question. So it's an eternal chicken and egg question. So maybe to a certain extent we are better off having that chicken and egg question in place, because at least it keeps that level of mystery intact for us to be able to worship a greater power.
You know, Bernard Lowell, the famous astronomer, said that science tells you how to go back almost to the year zero. But it doesn't tell you how to get to year zero. And there you have to make a leap of faith.
Absolutely.
On that note, I think we'll end.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Ashwin.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Anil. We're very pleased to have with us Dino Moria here. Dino has apparently read the previous book, Chanakya's Chant, and he's a big fan of Ashwin's writing. So, Dino, thank you so much for being here today. If you could just say a few words for us and tell us about your association with Ashwin.
Good evening, everybody. I missed a very interesting conversation. I came in halfway, thanks to Bombay traffic. Maybe I'll continue this conversation with you on faith and
Absolutely.
what we
Absolutely.
think
Look
about
forward to it.
Going back to a point you mentioned earlier, actually. There are times actually when I lie down on my roof in the middle of the night and I look up at the stars and I wonder, there must be something out there. There must be something else out there. We're not the only ones. So that's kind of a mystery, which I think very soon people will start having answers for.
Yep.
And that's the scary part.
That's scary. Absolutely.
Congratulations firstly on the Krishna Ki. I'm looking forward to reading it. I have read Chanakya's Chant. Brilliant. I would like to say that the mind behind it was beautifully wicked. It was really fantastic. I mean, Chanakya thought that way, and if you wrote it, I think you would be a fantastic politician. Because
please, anything but that.
Yeah.
Anything.
But it was beautiful. It had me going from page one, and I hope the same with Krishna Ki.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations.
Thanks for being here with us.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much, Dino. And I think on that note, what we're going to do is we're going to unveil the book. But before that, we have the CEO of Westland, Gautam. Gautam, if you can tell us a little more about the journey so far. 2 books and the Krishna Ki being next. We'd love to hear about your association with Ashwin.
First of all, for the record, I didn't describe him as a Marwari, pot-bellied Marwari.
He was nice. He was nice.
It would have been a simple case of the pot calling the kettle black. Well, it's been an interesting association. I think we've only grown from strength to strength. I remember when we started with Roseable Line, we started with an initial print run of something like 7,000 copies. And we thought in those days that was a bestseller. When it came to Chanakya's Chant, we started with a print run of 20,000 copies. And today it has crossed more than 100, close to 150,000 copies. And that is a bestseller. And the third book was launched with a print run of 100,000 copies. And we've already sold about 60,000 copies. So it's well on its way to becoming an even bigger bestseller. And we just look forward to publishing more and more of Ashwin's books, and hopefully a 4th book very soon.
Thank you so much, Gautam. We hope so too. We cannot wait for the 4th book to come out. But in the meanwhile, let's do something that everybody in the audience has been waiting for, the unveiling of the Krishna Ki. I'd like Anil, Dino, Gautam to please pick a copy, a wrapped copy, and unveil it for the audience that's present here.